Maybe you aren't experiencing an intense wave of emotion. Maybe you're feeling stuck with a problem and you can't quite figure out the next step forward. I like to think about problems as falling into two categories: problems that can be solved and problems that have to be coped with. Sometimes problems are more complicated, and there are parts of them that might have solutions, and then we need to use coping to manage disappointment. So let's start with problem solving. If you haven't already, take the time to write about what is going on. When we can get our thoughts down on paper, it slows us down and it makes our concerns more concrete. It makes it easier for us to figure out what the problem is and take steps to solve it. The first thing we need to do is describe the problem in as simple terms as possible. What is the problem in a sentence? Next, let's brainstorm all of the ways that we could solve it. What are our options? It is important not to judge them. Just make an exhaustive list of what you could do. Next, we'll select the best option and implement it. Maybe the problem feels unsolvable, or maybe there are parts of the problem that could be solved, but others that don't have solutions. Then we move to coping. Let's take a second and think. What do you usually do when you need to cope with tough situations? Let's take a minute and list some coping strategies that are available to you. Get out a piece of paper and write down what strategies you already use or what you could try. Maybe jot down 3 things that usually help when you are feeling overwhelmed. I like to structure coping skills into categories: social, physical activity, productivity, creativity, spiritual, and soothing. It helps me to structure my list and explore new options to help me cope. Social. This can be hard right now with COVID restrictions. We can call or text a friend or use online gaming platforms to set up game nights and Zoom happy hours. Screen fatigue is real, and sometimes you want to give yourself a break and maybe go on a hike or a walk with a friend. Maybe you know that you need more social contact, but you're having to stretch yourself to do it. It can be helpful to set reminders and goals for contact. Maybe you put things on your calendar. Tuesday, text a friend. Friday morning at 9, call cousin. Physical activity. This can be doing formal exercise like an online class or a training session, but can also be just walking, stretching, or even walking around your house. It can be nice to get outside too if you can. Productive. This can include work-related tasks or household projects. It can be daily tasks like cleaning, baking, cooking, doing the laundry, making the bed, or more involved projects like organizing a room or a closet. Creative. This can include drawing, coloring, painting, decorating, writing, or bigger projects like painting or redecorating a room. Spiritual. This can, but does not have to be, a religious practice like prayer. It can also include meditation or service to others. Soothing. Taking a bath or shower, having some warm tea, using a heating pad or an ice pack to soothe or ground yourself. Another helpful coping strategy is to try to stay in the present. This can be really hard for people, myself included. When I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I sometimes do this thing where I create a flow chart. If this happens, then I will either do this or that. If I do this and then that happens, I will either do this or that, and so on. I try to look at all of the possible outcomes and generate all of the contingency plans. Creating all of these different plans, plan A, plan B, plan C, it is exhausting and really unhelpful. I've used all of this cognitive energy to solve a potential problem all of these different ways, and I'm exhausted with nothing to show for it. I may still not have a real applicable solution, and I certainly do not feel better about the future. Since it is important to conserve cognitive energy, one thing that I've found to be helpful is to remind myself that all I have to do is today. Sometimes I will even look at myself in the mirror and say, "Okay, Avery, what do you need to do today? What has to happen right now? What is the next thing you need to do?" When I get ahead of myself and start trying to plan tomorrow and the next day, I try to remind myself that when I wake up tomorrow, tomorrow's version of Avery will show up and handle tomorrow just like today's version of Avery is handling today. I try to remind myself that when I wake up tomorrow, tomorrow's version of Avery will show up and handle tomorrow just like today's version of Avery is handling today. We don't have to handle all of the days ahead of us right now today. We will continue to show up for ourselves just like we always have. You don't have to solve all of the future's problems. The future version of yourself will keep showing up for you and will have your back just like you always have. It is especially helpful to keep the focus on today when situations keep changing. We have to use the information that we have right now to make the decisions that we need to make right now. We have to trust ourselves that we will be able to continue making the right decision with the information we have as we get it. Another helpful coping strategy is to limit harsh judgment of self and others. It is so hard to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, let alone the people around us. When I find myself judging, whether it is myself or other people, I found it helpful to ask myself, what if we are all just doing the best we can? What would happen if you tried to see your own decisions and your own management of your life and experience as you doing the best you possibly can? What if you tried to see others in the same way? It is so tempting to judge yourself for making the wrong decision and others for making different decisions than you are. But what if we tried to replace that judgment with compassion towards ourselves and others? What if we tried to think about all of us just doing the best we can? Gratitude is another fantastic coping skill. We need to validate first. Moving too quickly to focusing on gratitude can actually rob us of the opportunity to feel our feelings. If I tell myself, you should be thankful that you have a job, when I am in the middle of feeling overwhelmed by canceling a vacation due to COVID, that is not helpful. That is going to make me feel invalidated and may even make me feel like I need to prove how disappointed I am. Once I have fully felt the feeling and given myself validation, this is really stressful, you are feeling overwhelmed, I may be ready to move into gratitude and think about the parts of my job or life for which I am grateful.